And I just want to say this because I think it's very important for me to address this. I know it's a lot of people that are protesting. There's a lot of people who are anti-police, and I know that this is a pro-police event. So I just want to first of all say that I want to apologize to nobody. I'm not apologizing to nobody. Don't you apologize to these crybabies. All they do is sit around and cry and don't do nothing. And the first time that they get a problem, they're going to dial 911. They're not going to call Pookie. They're not going to call James. They're going to call 911. If you want to have a real conversation, we can have a conversation. But don't sit out here and lie and be a coward. The men and women who put that uniform on are the most bold, courageous, selfless people on planet Earth. How do you know that, Mr. Tatum? Because I was a police officer. I put on the uniform. I put my life on the line every day for people that liked me and people that did not like me. People who were successful and people who were smoking crack every day. And I did it with a smile on my face, love in my heart, and a dedication to service. And that's exactly what police officers do on a day-to-day basis. I want y'all to understand that. And I just have a heart for law enforcement. When I was growing up, I was told that police officers were racist white people. That's what I was told. And when I got pulled over, the first thing I thought was that they pulled me over just because I'm black. They don't like a black man riding I had a Mustang because I had an afro. They don't like a black man riding a Mustang with an afro. And then there was a point in my life where I became an adult. I got saved. Anybody out here saved? I got saved, and God changed my life. And I started seeing things from a proper perspective. I started looking at people based on their character and not the color of their skin. I started evaluating professions based on the way they participate and the way they act towards me and not what the people say on the television. So I came to a crossroad in my life. I was an All-American football player coming out of high school, went to University of Arizona. I'm pretty sure y'all at Clemson will tear Arizona apart in pieces, but I'm not going to talk about that on this speech. But I went to the University of Arizona, played football, and things didn't work out for me. I just knew I was going to play in the NFL. I ran a 4.3 and a 40. I mean, all the numbers, man. I had all the numbers. But it didn't work out for me. And so there came a point in time where I had to transition. I applied for everything in the city of Tucson, which is where I played football at. And one day, somehow, some way, the police department called me back. And I'm gonna tell y'all this funny story. I was dating at the time, right? I was dating. I was cool, just like some of y'all brothers out here. And me and my girlfriend at the time had got into an argument the night before, I think over an engagement ring or something like that. I told her I wanted it back if she didn't want to be with me because I paid too much money at, I forget where I bought that thing at. I paid too much money. But anyway, the call came in the next day and it was the police department. And they said, Mr. Tatum. And I was like, I can't believe she called the police on me over an engagement ring. She trying to get a brother locked up. Racism. No, I'm just playing. But so once I figured out that they were calling me about the job, I said, well, let's go. Let's make it happen. But I knew nothing about policing. I knew nothing. Except when I was younger, the experiences that I had, that's all I knew. So I went to the police department. I pulled up on a police officer and I said, hey, man, I want to do a ride along. Let me just see what this is all about. How many of you guys have done a ride along before? I should see way more hands than that. Make sure you sign up once the COVID is over. But I signed up to do a ride along. The first call for service that we did was we stopped by. It was an older lady who needed help with a flat tire. And I said, this is easy. It's a piece of cake. I can do this in my sleep. You know, what's the big deal? Very next call, the alarm went off. We had to go code 3, mean license sirens, to a kid who was actively committing suicide. He was actively cutting his wrist. We were going about 75, 80 miles per hour down a residential street. We almost died twice. And my heart is about to pop out of my chest. And the guy who was the police officer, Officer Sean Payne, I mean, he was cool as a cucumber, man. He just smoothing through. And we get there, we running around like chickens with our heads cut off. We get to the apartment complex. They forced entry. They kicked in the door. And I was back a little bit. gave me an opportunity to go in after they kicked in the door, and I saw Sean Payne save this kid's life. And I'll never forget this. I got back in the car, and he continued to ask me about my family. He said, hey, man, what were you talking about with your family? And my heart is about to jump out my chest, and I'm like, what family? I don't know what you're talking about, though. Did you just experience all this that I just experienced right now? And at that moment is when I knew that I had met a true hero. I thought that football players, I thought that athletes, and nothing against athletes. I grind every day when I was an athlete. I put in the work. But there's nothing like someone giving the ultimate sacrifice of their life to another to save people. And I said, man, I got to do this. This is my calling on my life. And I became a Tucson police officer in 2011. I was on the SWAT team. I was a field training officer. I trained new officers. I taught at the academy. I was a general instructor. Did I say I was on the SWAT team? I think I said that. It was my favorite. It was my favorite thing I ever did. I was a public information officer, meaning I was a PIO. I was a spokesperson for the police department for a period of time. I did everything on the police department. And I cannot count on one hand how many people's lives I've saved. I'm talking about literally saved, not figuratively, not in theory, but actually saved. And I'll tell this one story because it just sticks with me. I remember it almost every night I go to sleep. It was a young lady. She was hanging off a cliff. It was about a 30, 40-foot drop. She had enough. She was 16 years old. She wanted to end her life. Her legs were hanging off the cliff. And in many cases, people who want help, they'll call 911 and say, hey, I'm suicidal. People who have already committed to it, they're not going to call. And so some people were passing by and they called and they said, hey, this girl got her legs off the cliff. And just so happened, I was the only officer in the area right by our substation. I come out, I pull up, and I had to make a decision because this could be the end for me or her or both. And I remember pulling up and I said, you know what? I'm going to sneak up on her and I hope to God that she doesn't see me and jump off because I can't just, I'm going to watch her jump off and then I'm going to have to go down there and render aid. You don't just get to walk away from a situation like that. And in my mind, I said that'd be too terrifying, so I have to make a decision. I walked up on her and I said, as soon as I get close enough, I'm just going to swing my arm and pray to God that I save her. Because if I don't, she's going off the edge. And I walked up to her, and when I had the moment, I went for it. I swung my arm, I got her. She fell to the ground. I picked her up and I hugged her. And I said, it's going to be all right. You're going to be all right. And I took her to the hospital. Who cut my mic? All right, there you go. It must have been one of them protesters. But I saved her life. I'll never forget that. Another situation, I had an opportunity that presented itself that this lady was a deadly threat to me and I could have shot and killed her, but I didn't. I could see it in her eyes that she wanted to do what we consider a suicide by cop. That means she would come at me with a knife and she hoped that I shoot her. That's the only way she can do it. I'll never forget her coming out the door at me with a knife, and I was a good enough distance from her, and because of my tactical experience, I was pretty confident that I could handle myself in close quarters. And I remember her coming at me and tears in her eyes, and I pulled my gun out and I pled with her. I said, please, don't do this. Drop the knife, please. And I begged her for about 10 or 15 minutes. And you're talking about 10, 15 minutes is the length of this speech. I pled with her for 10, 15 minutes, and she eventually threw the knife down. That was the greatest moment, one of the greatest moments of my entire life. And I remember taking her to the hospital. I have many more gruesome ones, but I'm not going to share that with y'all because I don't know, some people got some weak stomachs, but those are the things that police officers go through on a day-to-day basis. Not shooting somebody because they running down the street and this black violence and all this stuff that they talk about. That's not the typical experience. The police officer experience is service every single day. I mean, we went to thousands and thousands and thousands of calls a year. I've written thousands of case reports, and I was on the police department for 6.5 years. I did all of that. That's the majority of what police officers do. Now, I want to break up a couple myths. I haven't been paying attention to my time. Those of you who know me know I can talk all day, but I'm going to try to wrap it up a little bit. So I want to talk about a couple myths. The myth that police officers in America are inherently racist. It's a lie. It is a complete lie. Are there police officers that are racist at some point, or bad, or ignorant. Yes. If you somehow think that every police officer is a mini God, then you are fooling yourself. And I don't understand why people want to counsel and defund the police when more people die from malpractice by far than die at the hands of law enforcement. But we don't counsel the doctors. More pastors, if I had to make an assumption, more pastors are doing negligent things to young people and doing negligent things to their congregation than what police officers are doing per interaction with the public. But we don't counsel, church folks. So police officers are doing an incredible job, and they're doing it at a high level every day. And when people say that black people are targeted disproportionately by law enforcement, that is a lie. That is a lie. Just because the media is showing you every day, every interaction with black folks don't make that's the true experience. If you look at any stat, you can look it up when you get home. Don't believe me. Look up the stats. White people in this country get shot twice as much as black people do by law enforcement. Twice as many white people are shot unarmed by law enforcement than black people do. And you're gonna hear the theory, and they're gonna say, no, that's not true because, there's more white people. Well, police don't contact everybody in the population. They only contact or deal with the criminal element of the population or people who call for service. And that's not everybody in the population. If you look at the numbers, and this is a very discouraging number to me, and it should be to everybody in here because we all Americans, we're all family at the end of the day. But when you look at the inner city violence and you look at the black violence in this country, it's astronomical. You're talking about, I don't know, think about it. Black people make up 13% of the population in this country. And there's no way in the world that half of the black population is the criminal element. There's no way in the world. That'll be about 6%. So you just go half of that, 3%, and you'll say 3% of that is the population that is committing the crimes. 3% of the population of the United States of America is committing half of the murders in this country and over half of all violent crimes. So if you put those numbers together, police are interacting with minorities at a higher rate than anybody else per capita. But yet they don't shoot black people at a higher rate per capita than anybody else. It's not happening, it's a lie. All of these stories that you hear that they push are to divide us, to make you hate the police, and then make you hate your brothers and sisters because there are gonna be people that defend it, some people are not. It's strategically functioned to make you hate each other. That's all it is. But I'm here, and the others are here in part to empower you to be informed, to never apologize for people who are telling a flat out lie to you. Be emboldened to stand up for what you believe. Stand up for law enforcement when you see them. Tell them thank you for your service. And tell the ones who are not doing what they're supposed to be doing to screw themselves. Because I don't like police officers who are cutting up. If it was up to me, I'll kick them in the butt myself. I'd love to go to every substation and give them a butt whooping myself. And I guarantee you the people that are in this room in uniform, they can't say it to you because they're on duty right now, but they hate bad cops. When you are out here cutting up and making our job horrible, making us look bad, we don't like you either. I work with people that I wanted to fight sometimes. I'm just being honest. Didn't like them. I hope they got fired. I was hoping. I was down there snitching on them. Nah, look, he did this. Nah, he didn't follow that manual right there. Take him down. We don't like police officers either who are doing the wrong thing. And there's a big difference between doing something that people may not like and doing something that is wrong. When you look at the majority of the police shootings that people are mad at was a police officer acting appropriately, and people just don't like it because they don't understand law enforcement use of force. There's a difference. There's a difference between Eric Garner and Walter Scott. Walter Scott was the guy that got shot in the back. He fought the police officer, he was running down, and the police officer shot him in the back and put a taser at his foot. If it was up to me, that police officer would be put to death for doing that. You killing somebody in cold blood and trying to frame it in your uniform, you a disgrace. That's different than Eric Garner. That's different than all these other shootings that these people are crying about. And if you took 1 minute, I say a half a shift to do a ride along. And I would challenge anybody in here, if you love police officers or you don't, go do a ride along. Even if you don't like them, go do a ride along. See what they do on a day-to-day basis. I guarantee you 50% of the people who criticize police in a negative way won't even get out of the car. How do you know, Mr. Tatum? Because I took somebody on a ride along. A young lady was SJWing out at the daycare center my son went to. She was like, oh, yeah, cops are racist. And I said, oh, okay. Come on, do a ride along with me. Let's see how racist these police officers are. And we went down, and she could not tell, in broad daylight, she couldn't tell the race of the people that I was pulling over. You can't see the race of a person that you're pulling over from the back, even if they didn't have tint. She couldn't see. She wouldn't get out on a traffic stop. So I pulled somebody over for running a stop sign. She wouldn't get out the car, shaking. And when the rubber hit the road and I had to, we had to go toe-to-toe with people, she definitely wouldn't get out the car. I think she even closed her eyes and ducked down in the seat. She may have peed on herself or something like that. Y'all grown, I can say that. But so that's pretty much what I want to say. I want you guys to be emboldened to know that it's okay to support the police. It's okay to understand that the police are doing what's right. And it's okay to criticize those when they are wrong. And I'm finishing with this. Don't get upset too hard with these people who are disagreeing. They're just ignorant temporarily. If you love people like you do to Christ, you love people to Christ. If you love people to the truth, I think more people will wake up. Sometimes you got to give them a spanking, but when you have a personal relationship with people and you want to win them over with love, win them over with facts.